This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, thank you,
All right,
Anton. Do you mind
Andrew.
if I share my
Yep.
screen now? Can you see some fairly bright slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, splendid. All right, that's a good start. It's trouble is with using this sort of 90s technology. This when Jan said it's GoToMeeting, I was like, GoToMeeting. Wow, this is we need to sort of this is next level digital team working from the 90s. So very exciting. Sorry, I'm being a little facetious, but um, I know
Love the
Janus
British
quite
humor.
well. I've moderated some peer groups for Janus in the past, the future workplace ones in Oslo and in Amsterdam a year or two back. So he doesn't mind a bit of gentle ribbing. More recently, I've been working by myself, doing digital team building. Come up with a range of tools that are done in online workshops that help organizations, typically with Microsoft Teams, and how they can find the what's in it for me, but also how they can then start to apply some new techniques. So trying to explore different levels of team working within Microsoft Teams, from low maturity to quite high maturity, and hopefully solving some of their problems. And I'll show you exactly how that looks and some of the typical techniques that organizations are trying. And I guess why? I mean, there's a lot of it, is we're remote right now, and that's fairly obvious. But I think that we've seen that the tools are working. And right now, if everyone is remote, we're balanced. We have the same experience, unless you've got the garden office when everyone hates you. But yeah, things will change. There will be some return to the office. And if that's the case, if we haven't mastered digital team skills yet, yeah, we really need to focus on it, because we're not always going to be back in the office. All of us are going to be back in the office. Some of us will stay home. The ones that do stay home, the 9 to 5 has become the 7 to 6, the 8 to 7. I think the day has become blurred. So we're not counteracting that, and we're still swamped with meetings. There's still this culture of replicating what we did in the office to what we're doing at home. And we're still working synchronously. We haven't mastered asynchronous working. I think we're all still trying to work at the same time, which is, quite a problem. And so what happens when some of us return to the office? It's going to be a bit of a challenge, because if we've got balance now, we won't have balance then. Now's the time to actually start improving these digital team skills whilst we are all remote. So when we do, maybe some of us return to the office, we're better prepared, we're more resilient. And so the approach that I've been taking is starting with people, not the tools. I think typically when we look at, say, Microsoft 365, we focus on the actions and techniques to using the tools, which is, fair enough. We've bought the tools, we need to use them. And I'm trying to take a step back and look at what do we need to focus on? What are the goals? Maybe the goals are related to things we don't do so well or things we do well, but we need to find some kind of focus. I think we really need to appreciate what's going to stop us as well, because if we don't, we're just going to repeat the same mistakes. Nothing's going to change. And then we can actually find some strategies, behaviors, and techniques that we can apply. And I've been doing this for UK government clients. So, and these are organizations that have, like everyone else, jumped to remote working. Everyone's using Teams to some extent, but they're really keen to actually take it further, to actually work as a digital team and move Teams from just the calls and chat to actually, proper asynchronous working techniques, good team working techniques. So we've been doing this using this format, this online game, which I will hopefully be able to share with you. And if you want to ask any questions as we go, please jump in, or you can always ask Janus later and he can pass them on to me if necessary, give him something to do. And I will now share the canvas that I've been using. So this is a Mural, what you'll see. It's an online tool for doing virtual workshops, but I've done it in Miro, Teams Whiteboard if you're really desperate.
Oh, Andrew, have you shared it with us? Oh, there it is.
Here we go. Here it comes. Yeah. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. Next level digital skills demo, 23 March.
Okay, great stuff. So this is in Mural, and it's just all it is it's a set of content. There's some game cards in there and some templates for running a workshop. And so this is what I've done with my UK government clients. And it typically takes 2 sessions per workshop of around 2 hours. I need to break it up because I think doing more than 2 hours in one go is a bit hard. And you can see it's split into segments. There's a kind of a game board in the middle where we kind of put all the cards we've chosen. There's a goals section on the left, a blockers section on the right, and then at the bottom we have some strategy and tactics cards. Starting with goals, now this is usually trying to find a way of something that's not quite working. What do we need to improve if we're going to be a good digital team? And so as an exercise we can do, we can discard some, we can filter them down by maybe looking at things we do quite well already and some things that we don't think are important. And so, we can look at things like celebrating individual excellence or making effective and timely decisions. I think these are things that most teams can actually improve upon. Do our team leaders empower team members? Do they listen and inspire? Yeah, it varies, but typically in a workshop you'll get themes, and using techniques such as voting, we can find one or two common areas. And I think some of the workshops I've been doing for government clients, the key issues that came up were not being able to bring in voices from outside. So not having customers and stakeholders involved in team conversations, that since everyone went home, the conversations have just been within that team. And so that's great because that gives us a really clear focus. Okay, we want to then improve our skills to enable us to work better as a team, to collaborate more with other teams and with external parties. So we use that as a bigger framework. And from that, we then can look at what's going to stop us. And I've split that into 4 segments: habits, processes, technology, and cultural issues, just as a way of helping to frame it really. And these ones I put in are just examples, but they typically come up very often, that we don't have enough time. There's too many tools. We're not quite sure what tool we should use for which purpose. What's in it for me is a big issue. We don't know what we don't know, and fear of being seen. I think if we're trying to promote a more open, collaborative way of work, there are still some fears of working out loud, of putting our work into, say, tools like Teams where other people can see what we're up to. So that's really important to surface these things, and this is what has been coming up time and time again, because then we can start to address it. And this is when the more fun bit gets going on for me as a facilitator. It's much easier because I can do this, and I can set these up into breakouts and basically just ask each team, have a chat and pick 3 cards you think will help meet our goal and overcome our blockers. And so I've just done this is for an example. So if you have 3 teams, I might put in more cards. There's a whole range of cards. There's ones based on team working. There's also ones for enterprise collaboration, for team leadership engagement. Senior leadership engagement. And these are just a selection that will be done for team working. And so, it just gives participants a chance just to have a chat and interact with some content. These are strategies, so these are more maybe higher level or sort of longer term things to think about. So for example, we might look at creating an operating charter with teams we collaborate with. So say we're in teams, our other teams in the organization might be in teams as well, but do we collaborate in teams? Do we use email? It's just trying to find some common ways of working together. And this one gets selected quite a lot. Sometimes we need to go to the basics and just adopt a token to say that it's a safe place. We are able to work out loud here. Maybe sometimes we need to look at ways of trying to follow other people outside of our immediate circles. It just starts a prompt, a conversation of how can we actually start to think outside our immediate team. And in another box, there's some other cards out of these. I think the ones that get selected quite a lot, just simple ones like post and comment the way you speak. Think about how I would say it if the person was sitting across the table from me. So starting to change our habits a little bit.
So Andrew,
Yes,
Martin has a question from Switzerland. Martin, would
Please
you like
go for
to
it.
pose it? I think it's related to
Yeah.
high performance teams.
Well, I was just wondering, Andrew, if you do this by Mural, people are
Yeah.
not anonymous, yeah? So people, so how is it? How does the trust come into place where with team dynamics and psychological safety
Mm.
within? Is everybody confident of sharing these kind of things to each other?
Yeah, so good question, and it can be done anonymously if you want. So you can actually join the mural anonymously. So you can add stickies and contribute without anyone knowing who you are. But once you get into the breakouts, it's a conversational thing. So people do talk, so it's fairly obvious who you are. But I think that's when you're starting to talk about solutions and answers and ways forward. So yeah, that's a more positive activity. But in terms of trying to find the blockers and trying to find the goals, that's all an anonymous activity if necessary. So, but typically I've not found any problems because we're not shaping it as we want to find the problems. We're shaping it as let's find some opportunities to improve. And I've found that everyone's actually very engaged in the process. But I think that depending on your culture, you can choose to do it with everybody open, or you can do it anonymously.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And
no
then
worries.
Hillary also asked about how do you make sure that new practices are actually adopted in a sustainable fashion?
Yeah, that's another good question. I mean, I think once you've done the workshop and you've identified what you want to do, I guess if you've got a goal and then you've decided on some techniques, then they'll become measurable. You've actually got some actions that you can say, all right, we're going to commit to doing this. So say we've committed to doing a team charter. You can then say, well, are we going to do this? So can we measure when are we going to do this? We can start to assign this into a plan. So we're going to do this on this date. Whether this is as an individual team or perhaps as an organization, you say we want all of our teams to do this. But I think once you start to get a clear plan of why you need to change and then what you're going to do, it's easier to track than just saying, we're going to try and do more hackathons. It's like, well, so what? I think it's some of these things are quite specific, and so then they can be measured. And ideally, I'd do this in a continuous improvement cycle. So you would go back a year later and look again. Are we doing what we said we'd do? Yeah. If not, why not? Hopefully that answers that. And so the next activity is exactly the same as the other one. Oh, no worries. Is looking at techniques. So these cards here are all techniques. So you do the same thing. Breakout teams, get them to discuss and find some things they'd like to try. And I think one thing that's come up quite a lot in the workshops I've done is crowdsourcing meetings as a way of engaging other members in the team. Replacing status update meetings with threads in Teams. So this is a nice time-saving activity. So it just means instead of doing a weekly call, you're just doing this in a thread over a day or half a day or whatever your time frame is. Simple things like using app mentions, and all these cards really do is just help prompt participants to go, okay, yep, I can do this. This is something that's actually quite simple and quite doable. Other things are a little bit more organizational. So, just simple governance around setting up your team so that the membership is low. So it's actually, a proper team. Are you using it as a team? It's again, just prompting some questions that are you actually set up well as a team? And I'm just thinking any other cards here that are quite popular in the workshops. A lot of people are quite keen on the video idea. Again, it's something that's quite simple to do. And obviously with some of the goals around, I mentioned with the government clients trying to bring in other people outside of your team into conversations. And from these, the cards are as much as anything a prompt. We then have the conversation in the workshop. How are we going to do this? What are some ways of doing this? And as a team, then we can actually surface this and realize, okay, all we need to do is actually talk about it and get this happening. If you're doing it as a steering committee, or you're a change manager and you want to try and implement new ways of working, I've done these workshops with stakeholder groups, and you get a representative view of like, what's the appetite for change? What do these stakeholders want to try? And then from that, you can start to create a bit of a plan, and then you can look at, right, how can we embed this? What support do we need to make these things happen? Some of these things are a little more complicated, and some of them are very simple. And some of these are just essentially just nudges, habits that we can start to change. Some of them are things where, at a steering level, you can say, okay, we're going to run this campaign on how to write a good post, just things like that. So it just starts to get a sense of what's the appetite, what can we do, what do we feel like doing, how do we do it. And my most recent piece of work, which just finished, we did stakeholder workshops, and now the findings from that, they've taken a subset of cards. There's maybe around 20 that they're now running in individual team workshops to say, okay, try these. These are things that I think you'd like to try as a team. And so then each team gets a chance to just pick some cards and decide what they'd like to do themselves, just to ease their way into it. So rather than a big bang, we're going to change, we're going to transform how we work as teams. It's like, here's some techniques, try these, see how you go. So that's what I really wanted to show. If anyone wants to look at anything in any more detail or ask any questions, fire away.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. So choose your own adventure from here on.
It pretty much is. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's, you can see with the way the board is. You can just drag up the cards. Some that we want to do now. Oh, no, I need to move the board backwards. This is where these canvases are always a little bit of fun, because you have images that are maybe not in quite the right place. But there we go. So you can just, you can think, what are we going to do? What can we do now? Maybe what do we need? Some change management. Perhaps there's things that we need some senior steerage. So it's a nice way of saying, right, this is the adventure we want to take. Let's do this. And of course, you can also add your goal into your board as well. So, right, this is what we're going to focus on for this workshop.
Do we as a team make decisions effectively?
And this one does come up quite a lot, because I think this is something that we struggle with at the best of times. And I've also learned that if we don't work well as a team in the analog world, we don't work well as a team in the digital world. It's the same principles that we need to look at. So if we find team working measures that we need to improve on, it doesn't matter if they're digital or analog. It's going to be the same issue.
All right. And so Jakob asked, how do you keep up momentum in the long run in a fragmented organization?
That's what you do need is, within an organization, is one or two committed people that want to make this work, that want to see this kind of change continuous. So I think being involved in workshops, being able to jump in and help people. So the work I've been doing for my government clients, I've done a series of workshops, as much as anything, to coach them, and then they're taking it on themselves. They're responsible as a point of contact to lead the change and to keep engaging with people, to offer coaching or to offer facilitating workshops themselves, and just to keep prompting and reminding, do this, and sharing stories. I think once you've done a few teams, they start to tell stories. This is what we've done. Get these stories in front of other teams so they get to see the benefits. It just might be something simple, like we ditched the weekly team meeting for a series of posts in a channel in Teams, and this is how it worked. This is what changed. Things like that then start to bring other people onto the journey.
Great. And then Martin from Switzerland asked also if participants can create their own cards.
Yes, absolutely. This is, I don't know if I've got any in here, but normally in a real workshop, there'll be a couple of wildcards. But I mean, what sometimes we do is you can just add a sticky in here and just, we can add that, and that does happen. And I do encourage people to do that, because the most important thing of the workshop is it once you've got the goals, it's very bottom up. It's trying to help participants find what they want to do. The cards are great talking points, but if someone's got their own ideas, that's far more empowering.
All right. And I think you've already met Bart Lenz. He asks more into the framing of this, like how do you invite people internally? How do you set the stage for this?
Yeah, so it would often be done in tandem with a broader program of change. So I've been typically working with a lead in a company who is responsible for either digital competency or knowledge management or digital transformation. And so as part of their remit, they would set the scene and invite, if we're doing stakeholder workshops, find the right stakeholders they think would be appropriate to kickstart this off. And sometimes it's just done with, let's just do the workshop on its own and find out what do we want to do as an organization, just to help find some areas to focus on. If we're thinking about returning to the office, what do we need to do? If we're trying to find where we are with digital team working, where are we at? What's our baseline? What can we start to focus on? So it depends on what organizationally your priorities. I think at its basics, it's just improving digital skills. It's just helping to increase those core competencies for using tools like Microsoft Teams.
All right. Any other questions, reflections? Let's see if anybody has more questions. I don't know if we could can we get like a screenshot of this or something? Andrew, do you think I could weave into the blog post?
Yeah, of
Or
course.
some sample cards or something? Because I think there's clearly already a lot of hours invested into this that I think fits across government and large, complex global private sector,
Absolutely. Maybe I could share just my favorite card out of all of the ones that we've used. It's just a personal favorite. I'm going to go back
Let's
into
see your
this.
favorite card.
My favorite card. Let's see if it's still there.
And while you're doing that, Andreas, you asked about hargraves.com. I wasn't.
Sorry, what's the question?
No, so the question is that there seems to be a digital team builder intro or pack or something, but all links to that seems to 404.
Right. Okay. Those are my partners in Australia who they're the ones that do the admin of the cards and the games. And I know they're changing the website. They're adding a new page. So I'll pass that on. So it sounds like that's not working. But if you need any help, just drop me a line directly, and I can certainly facilitate any content that you might need. But yeah, it sounds like they're in the process of changing that page. So apologies if that doesn't work. I'll go and beat them up afterwards. I won't really beat them up. There's more of them. But this is my favorite. Personally, my favorite card. I think for digital team working as a whole is actually setting up a user manual for a team, and this does get chosen quite a lot because it's just starting to put ourselves forward and saying, this is how I like to work. This is the conditions I like to work in. This is how to contact me. These are things I love. Because I think if we don't say this, the expectations are very muddled, and we tend to default to just a way of work that just exists because it exists. And I think if we start to be a bit more open and say, actually contact me like this, maybe even like, don't contact me at these times, and we start to set out our own expectations of how we like to work, it starts a very subtle change in which we bring a bit more control back into our day. And I'm starting to see teams using this more and more, where it's more about us being empowering ourselves to say, no, actually, I like to work like this. Obviously there's a huge amount of flexibility because sometimes the project needs certain things, but if we get a chance, maybe pick up the phone and talk to me rather than just sending me an email. So it starts to just establish some practices that maybe if we haven't defined them, it's a good way of starting.
And perhaps one of the last questions we'll get to is the numbers on the cards, Andrew.
Yes.
What are they about? Is that like how to get to 100 and you win?
Well, potentially. No, it's just an admin thing. Well, so each card, so there's a deck of cards. There's 1 to 50 odd in each deck. Some of the cards have a little number on them, and they're linked to a page in a book. So all the strategy cards, they're related to a design and collaboration book that myself and Alistair Webb wrote a few years ago. So there's more support. So if you play that card, you can actually go to the book and then find the relevant information around how does that work? How can you do that? How can I establish that for my organization? But the bigger numbers, it's just a sequencing.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
No worries.
I think we're right on time. Any closing question, remarks, feedback? I hope this was useful. Just, it's a little bit hard always with the body language on these things, no matter whether you use Zoom or
thank
Teams.
you. This was really useful. Very, very interesting. Thank you.
Okay. No worries. No, thanks.
Yeah.
All right. I will share slides and links, and I'll copy also the links over here from Torstein, which you might just have seen in the chat, our Norwegian friend from Gjensidige, which has also the playbook from Atlassian and warm-up exercises. And I think that's it for now. Thank you very much for joining, but a big thank you to you, Andrew.
Oh, no worries. And if anyone would like a little demo as well, I'll have to try. Just drop me a line, and happy to set up a call, and we can run through it, because it's probably easier to do it one-on-one than with everybody.
That works. Thank you, Andrew.
Brilliant. No worries. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you.